Hello, BookTube. All right, we are in installment number 4, I believe, of our 8.1K Q&A, and we are up to John M., who has a barrage of questions. Uh, Number 1. A while ago, I found Neil Griffith's book channel and enjoyed it, but I noticed he hasn't made any videos in a while. It's true, he seems to have left us. Do you know if he's okay and is simply on a hiatus from his channel? I hope he is well and good. Well, I hope he's okay. I don't know at all. He left us. Jason Harrigan at Byways in Brooklyn left us. Sean Stanfast left us. We've lost a couple of venerable older booktubers, but I hope he comes back someday. I loved his channel when he was making videos. Number 2, what is your opinion of John Furling's biography of John Adams? Very well may be the single best one-volume biography of John Adams that's ever been written. I wish I had a copy. I did. I had a copy once upon a time. It and his biography of Washington were reprinted in a very nice trade paperbacks, probably 10 years ago. And the publisher sent me both of them, and I don't have them. I don't know why I would ever get rid of them, but I don't have them. And question number 3. I assume you've been to Spokane, Washington before. I have. Good of you to assume it. If not, oh well. No, there's no if not. I have never been to Australia. If the place you're wondering about isn't Australia, then I have been there. Could you briefly describe your visit there and what it was like when you were there? Oh my, well, it was a long time ago. I probably don't remember any specifics. I'd have to refresh my memory with my journal. Thank you for all you do. Your videos and your schnauzer have been wonderful in these times. Well, that's great. If I can help. I've always enjoyed, I love your company every day. It's purely selfish. I love talking to you every day. But in 2020, I have heard from so many people that in addition to loving your company, I've also been helping you by turning on the camera and nattering about books and showing you Frida once in a while. If that is true, if I can help in any way in this, the worst year of any of our lives, then so much the better. I'm so incredibly honored to think that might be true. I recently lost my dog over the summer, and seeing Frida brings a lot of joy to my heart. Well, that's good. That's good. It saddens me to hear that you lost your dog over the summer. I hope you're considering getting another dog or more than one. That's the only real balm to the pain of losing a dog is to get another one. Because they don't know anything about it. They just need you. They just need you. Get 2 dogs. Go to your shelter and adopt 2 dogs. Preferably go to your shelter and find 2 dogs who've lived with each other their whole lives and were dumped by their a-hole owner and adopt both of them. That would be my advice. I'm not sure you asked for advice. Let's see here. Lisa Garrity says, hi, Steve. I'm going to ask a have you read it question. This has come up a few times in this Q&A. Those of you who are new to this channel, it is forbidden for you to ask Steve if he has read a book, since he reads 120, 150 pages an hour and reads for an average of 8 hours every day and has for longer than you've been alive. But my subscribers do it anyway, and I allow it. This year's Diagram Prize was awarded to A Dog Pissing at the Edge of a Path by Gregory Forth, narrowly beating out Introducing the Medieval Ass by Catherine Smithies and Classical Antiquity and Heavy Metal Music by K.F.B. Fletcher and Osman Umerham. Have you read any of these books, and what did you... Of course I haven't read them. No, they're not meant to be read. For those in the comments that don't know, the Diagram Prize is offered for the books with the oddest title published during the year. The winner gets exactly nothing. No, I haven't read these books. There are also outdated air conditioner repair manuals that I haven't read. I never claim to have read everything. Nathan Fong says, still struggling, adjusting to not having your penguin wall in the background. Yes, the background changed. This is the little book room now. The background has changed. Just a bit. It's still saturated with books, but let's see here. Congratulations, by the way. At this rate, you might end up having to do these Q&As once a fortnight. 2 non-book related questions, please. Which is more terrifying, a moose or a bear to encounter? A bear. Absolutely. Mooses usually are oblivious, with one notable exception in my own personal history. Bears are almost never oblivious. And if they don't turn on a dime and run, when they see you, when they encounter you, if they don't do that, they're going to do the opposite of that. So bears, hands down. I recently read Winter Dance, so I do have a different perspective of mooses now. Did you like Winter Dance? Winter Dance is a terrific book. And number 2, do you have a favorite astronaut? No. P.S. I hope Frida is on the mend. I miss her energy. Well, she showed a lot of energy in one of these Q&A videos, but she's off on her perch now, just surveying the world. Ned Covington says, I must say I've enjoyed your commentary on American politics and current events this year. I suppose Trump's real legacy will be his Supreme Court appointments. I'd love to hear recommendations related to Supreme Court history, landmark cases, and biographies of justices. A starter kit, a Supreme Court starter kit is a great idea. I'm a junkie of the Supreme Court, so that would be an easy thing to do. It would make for a great conversation. Although I disagree with you that Trump's Supreme Court picks will be his most lasting legacy. Trumpism, American Nazism, will be his most lasting legacy, and it's going to go into abeyance for a bit, and then it's going to be back with a vengeance that I think is going to startle a lot of people who have not read 1930s German history. But American Nazism, the cult of the dear leader, the hatred of all others, the foreign policy and domestic policy built on contempt and cruelty, this was its birth pangs. Here we got American Nazism without the militarism. I think that's his most lasting legacy, is that he not only introduced that into the mainstream of American politics, but also revealed with a horrible spotlight how many Americans are okay with it. And it's half the country or more. I don't think anyone really realized that until now. That's a horrifying legacy, but that's the one I think it is. Look Up Cenomics has a barrage of questions. Number 1, how would you describe your trip to Russia? What cities did you visit? Are Russians friendly? The Russians I met were extremely friendly. I visited every city, of course, because every city in Russia is not Australia. Okay. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I went at a time when there were... I spent most of my time in Russia in the Russian wilderness rather than in Russian cities. Probably 70-30 would be the breakdown there. And Russian wilderness was just unbelievably gorgeous. A little bit rife with bears. And the bears, of course, being in Russia, are much bigger. But there were a lot of great experiences there, including some very forbidding physical experiences of cold that my dogs and I went through. Question number 2, do you think the jobs we lost in 2020 will come back in 2021? No. The economic body blow has yet to fall. At least in the American economy. The body blow of 2020 has yet to fall. It will fall in 2021. Or will poverty rates increase very suddenly in the near future? They will, absolutely. You don't stop an economy almost completely in its tracks for the whole course of a year without incurring a lot of long-term damage downstream. And I believe we will see that. You haven't seen... We're still in shock now. We're still scrambling and improvising now. But I could be wrong. We shall see. Lord knows, absolutely kamikaze mismanagement of federal finances by a series of Republican administrations have left the Federal Reserve and the United States economy with almost no wiggle room to provide for emergencies, to help with a gigantic depression, a gigantic stock market, or a real estate downturn. They've mortgaged those abilities over the course of 20 years to the point where there's very little in the way of... Well, we shall see. We shall see what happens in 2021. And question number 3. I just finished The Edge of Sadness by Edwin O'Connor and was surprised that it won a Pulitzer because reading it for me was like drinking very weak tea. No kidding. Didn't like Edge of Sadness. Being set in Boston and written about Irish Catholics felt like a good book to ask your opinion on. I'm kidding about the Catholic part, but you need not be. Once a Catholic, always a Catholic. Maybe I've got blinders on, or maybe it's been too long since I read it. I thought it was much stronger than weak tea. Maybe not as strong as All in the Family, but still really good. Maybe I should read it again. Those of you who are new to the channel might not know Edwin O'Connor wrote The Last Hurrah, which I venerate. I love it. I think it's a great American novel. But he also wrote lots of other books, even his first book. I thought were all really strong. Maybe I should go back and look at Edge of Sadness again. I'll have to see if I can find a copy. I only have The Last Hurrah. I don't have any other Edwin O'Connor. Culture Fan says, congrats. Do you like Alistair Reynolds? I do. What would you recommend? Any of the big books. I would recommend. This is an author who never presented to the reading public anything that wasn't polished. Same for Philip K. Dick. Would you start with Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Dick is mostly garbage. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is mostly garbage, but if it's as a place to start, you could start there. Lord knows if you read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and your reaction is, gee, that was awful unfocused and very, very impressed with itself. In that regard, it read like everything that Kurt Vonnegut's ever written. It was clever in parts, but it really didn't hold together as a novel. And as such, I really didn't enjoy that reading experience. Well, then you know to stop. If you read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and you come to the end and you think, I am now a man. When you think, my whole life has been changed, I've had multiple sexual awakenings. Philosophically, I now know my place in the universe, all because of this one crappy book. Well, then Dick wrote a lot of other crappy books that you're going to read. That's for sure. Hoping you have the first reaction, not the second. Let's see here. What science fiction books would make good adaptations for a movie? Well, I recommend adopting a lot of them. Where is a great new adaptation, a movie adaptation of Stranger in a Strange Land, for instance? You can make a whole great movie out of the Cordwainer Smith story, Scanners Live in Vain. Why not do it? Why not try it? But also, I've a little bit off the beaten path here. I would say, The Martian Chronicles, for instance. Ray Bradbury, The Martian Chronicles. Where is a great movie about that? That would make a fantastic movie. But I would also recommend Kevin O'Donnell. An author named Kevin O'Donnell did a 4-book series called The Journeys of McGill Fayen years and years ago they've never been reprinted. They never will be reprinted. They would be terrific. Just terrific. In terms of an adaptation, I'd love to see it. What are you doing? Come up here. Come up here. Hey. Oh, sweet. Hi, baby. We're doing another Q&A. But also, if we're talking about adaptations, like maybe for cable. Can we make this a little more stable? Sorry, the camera's bouncing all over the place here. We'll try again tomorrow. In terms of like a cable show, a multi-episode, multi-season cable show, there is one science fiction fantasy property that I would love to see someone try. Unfortunately, there are only a couple of people out there in BookTube land who are going to nod vigorously when I say this. Mark Richardson is one of them, but there are maybe a couple of others. And unfortunately, enthusiastic reaction from 5 people is not going to get this greenlit. But what I wouldn't give for a really great multi-season Hulu or HBO adaptation of Doc Savage. Wouldn't that be incredible? Wouldn't I love that? Although, where would you cast Clark Savage? How could you possibly do it? The man of bronze. How could you possibly do it? 6'7", pure muscle, almost inhuman, trained to almost inhuman levels of performance. Those of you who've read The Watchmen by Alan Moore, and you encounter the character of Ozymandias, who isn't superpowered. In The Watchmen, only Dr. Manhattan is superpowered. But Ozymandias is the closest thing to it. He is so perfect a specimen of human being, mentally, philosophically, physically, that he almost is inhuman. And that Alan Moore patterned him on Doc Savage. What I wouldn't give, oh my, I think probably Mark Richardson out there is nodding up and down saying, oh yeah, that would be so great. And nobody, everybody else is saying, Doc who? That's all right. Let's see here. Andrew Russell says the channel is on fire. Roll on 20K subscribers. No. A few questions. Number 1, what are your thoughts on E.L. Doctoro as an author? I like him. Number 2, do you think you would ever get Frida a wee pal other than yourself, of course? It'd be tricky. Frida is the queen of the roost here. She is a very, very dominant dog. If there are plenty of dogs out there who aren't dominant. There are plenty of dogs out there who are goofy and extremely submissive. If I encountered one of those dogs who needed a home, then yeah, absolutely. The dog wouldn't have to be small either. Frida doesn't think she's small and doesn't need any help asserting herself with larger dogs. But it would all be just serendipity. I'm perfectly content, and so is she. So I wouldn't go looking. It would have to come to me, as dogs often do. Question number 3: do you think 2020 has taught us and also yourself to think differently, and if so, how? Well, yeah, 2020 has been traumatic. It's been one long trauma, and the thing with traumas is that they tend to teach you not to take things for granted. And that is definitely true in my case. I took for granted the freedom to gather. The freedom to gather with friends. The simple thing like that we can't do anymore and may never be able to do again in anything like the way that we once did. I took that for granted. I would never take it for granted again. Also, the year 2020, here in America has taught a lot of people not to take democracy for granted. The complacency that you would have encountered in American in, say, the 1980s or the early 1990s, maybe the 1980s. If you'd asked an average American in the 1980s, how vulnerable is America to one rule, one party, dear leader style North Korean fascism, they would have said, not at all. It can't happen here. And it came a whisker away from it happening in 2020. So, in fact, it's still going on. The person who wants to be the unelected dictator of the United States is still trying to have that happen. In plain view. Illegally. Every time Donald Trump goes to a rally or gets in front of a microphone and says, I was robbed, the election was rigged, we need to overturn it, we need to recount, he's breaking the law. There are laws in America against sedition, and he's breaking the law. Every time he does it, he's doing that. Every time he gets anybody else to do it, elected official, they're breaking the law. They are liable to criminal reprise. But so that is definitely real, and that is something that I hope Americans won't take for granted in the future. Alan Black says, firstly, how are you today? How has your day been? Well, how nice of you to ask. My day's been wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I spent the whole morning in the other room on the couch reading and writing. Secondly, have you ever read Sunset Song by Lewis Crassick Gibbon or The Living Mountain by Nan Shepherd? I don't think I've read either one of those. Also, do you read manga at all? No, I don't currently read manga. I've read a couple of series only out of the vast ocean of it. I read the Crying Freeman series and liked it. I read Death Note series and liked it, but I haven't read any others. Armin IE says, number one, what are some of your favorite places on Earth, and where, other than Boston, could you picture yourself living for an extended period of time? Well, I could picture myself living in any of the places. I have been everywhere in the world, except Australia and the Australian archipelago, but I've only lived in a couple of dozen places where I actually put down roots, where I had mail, where I lived there. And I could picture myself living in any of those places. Venice, for instance, one little spot on the west coast of Donegal, and that would be another place. Or the bedroom suburbs of Washington, D.C., Silver Spring or Gaithersburg. I could picture living there. In fact, more readily now that I wouldn't worry about the heat and the humidity. I would welcome the heat and humidity now. Any of the places, maybe even Austin. Any of the places where I have actually lived, I could picture living again. Question number 2, who are your favorite painters? John Singleton Copley, Edwin Landseer, Norman Rockwell, J.C. Leyendecker, but most of all, the portraits of John Singer Sargent. Those are probably my number one things. Question number 3, who are your favorite composers? The Baroque composers, the Italian Baroque. Galuppi, Tartini, Scarlatti, Boccherini, Gimignani. The Italian Baroque composers I love. I just love them. Frida, come up here. Come on. There you go. Why don't you just sit and relax, okay? Just sit and relax. Instead of looking for trouble. Question number 4. You have often mentioned your disdain for philosophy, yet you recommend reading Aristotle, Plato, Montaigne, and Erasmus. Would you please explain this? Well, the implication is that they are philosophers. And I don't think... Plato and Aristotle, yes, and I don't recall ever... you have to read Plato and Aristotle, some of them, in order to be well read in a canonical sense of the term. But I don't recommend them personally. They're mostly deadly dull. Montaigne is not a philosopher, and neither is Erasmus. They were concerned with real things in real time. So reading them, you're never going to encounter any of the gigantic deserts of fake profundity that you get in professional philosophers. Caesar Pizza 133 has a barrage of questions. Number 1, what's one book that's out of print that you wish would be republished? Oh, there are so many. There are so many. What about Silverlock by John Myers? That's a great fantasy classic that is just gone. As far as I know, it's out of print. Number 2, what are your thoughts on Cormac McCarthy, or like I call him, Tortilla Corncob Man? It seems like you didn't care for The Road. It seems like I didn't care for The Road. I have 2 hours of videos dismantling it angrily. That's more than it seems like I didn't care for it. That's I know not seems. I hated it. And I make that abundantly clear. It's not I seem to dislike it. I didn't care for it. I want to know your thoughts on his other books, especially Sutri. They're all terrible. They're all absolutely terrible on exactly the paragraph by paragraph and sentence by sentence level that I found The Road terrible in that series of videos. Question number 3. Out of all the places you went, which was the most overrated and which places do you think are underrated? Well, the most overrated places I've ever been were Disneyland and Disney World. They were just an ordeal. I don't know why anyone would want to go there or enjoy it. The most underrated place, probably Portugal. Just in the sense of how much I loved it versus how much I heard any other travelers talk about it, probably Portugal. Question number 4. Which iteration of Philip Marlowe did you like? Personally, I like the one where he was played by Elliot Gould. I have never liked an iteration of Philip Marlowe. I can picture it, but I've never seen one that didn't strike me as hammy. Question number 5. Is there a dog breed that you just don't like? No, there is not. They are my people. No. And question number 6. What do you think was the best year for film? That would be 1993. Because 1993 was the year that saw Jurassic Park. Okay. William Fett says, I know that you are not a big fan of Dickens. What do you think of some of his contemporaries, such as William Makepeace Thackeray? He's great. Thomas Carlyle, he's fantastic. Wilkie Collins and I have never really got along, but Carlyle and Thackeray are fantastic. Joe Buckley says, do you think the book Moby Dick had an editor? I know that it did. Would you please edit the book and release the Donoghue version minus all the nonsense? That book is a mess. Okay, I'm going to try to control myself here. It's not a mess, but I understand why you say so. There is an edited version of Moby Dick that would work to pull in readers, but trust me when I tell you that the whole of Moby Dick, the whole of it, the unedited version, is a work of genius. The parts that look like they don't belong, unlike, for instance, the opening chapter in The Scarlet Letter, which actually doesn't belong, the parts that look like they don't belong in Moby Dick actually do. They serve a higher artistic purpose. I ordinarily disdain thoughts like that, but Moby Dick as a whole, that looks unedited, actually is the product of a singular vision. Now, if you're not so much concerned with that singular vision, you just want to weigh into the book, then yes, I've often taken an unabridged version of Moby Dick that I was going to hand to a friend, just take a pencil and draw a line through the chapters that they are to skip entirely. It is possible to make a Moby Dick out of the unedited version by doing that. That's half the length or less, and that is just the meat and story of the book. And fine, if that's the way that you want to get into the world of Moby Dick, but I don't advise stopping there. The book is not, in fact, a mess. Rich Brother says, you ever listen to Jethro Tull? Jethro Tull Aqualung? Is that the Aqualung? They have such a deep discography, and I'm sure you would enjoy them. Oh my. I know Aqualung because at a time long ago, everybody knew Aqualung, but I don't think I've heard any other Jethro Tull. Royal Tube says, hello, Steve. Why do you think Brandon Sanderson is the most popular author of fantasy right now? He's mighty addictive. If you've never read him, reading a book of his might give you an answer to this question. He is a mighty addictive author. He has mastered the pulp artistry of page turning. I read the Mistborn trilogy and it was 100% garbage. I disagree. I disagree. As pulp fiction, it's not garbage. It's very effective. Maybe when you were reading, you were holding it to a higher standard. If you do that with a lot of Brandon Sanderson, you're going to be disappointed. There, I could understand there. Maybe he's just not multifaceted enough author for you, deep enough to use the wrong term. But maybe he's just not doing enough for you. That I could understand. That would be a legitimate criticism. Mac has a barrage of questions. Okay, all right. Number 1, do you think Michael Dukakis was a good governor? Yes. Would he have made a good president? Yes. He was thoughtful, circumspect. He was. There are now 2 schools of politics in America. One is thoughtful, listens to experts, cares about ordinary people, tries to lessen the burden or the ravages on ordinary people, and the other doesn't. The other doesn't do any of those things. The other is viciously rapacious and lawless. Unfortunately, I hate that because I'm old enough to remember a time when that wasn't true. But yeah, he'd have made a good president for all the right reasons. He would have been a conscientious, normal person who wanted bipartisan work, as opposed to a power-hungry, vicious Nazi. Question number 2. In the last Q&A, I asked you who are some of your favorite senators in American history, and you said there were too many of them to count, but you were fond of several from Iowa and one from Vermont. Who were you referring to? Well, I was referring to Frank Green from Vermont. From Iowa, you have Thomas Martin, Kirkwood, a whole bunch of people from Iowa that were very interesting, whether or not they were role models. But it was Frank Green from Vermont. Although there'd be other figures in Vermont senatorial history as well. Question number 3. Assuming the Democrats win the Senate, why would you support efforts to pack/balance the Supreme Court? Absolutely. Should be the first thing Joe Biden does. Why or why not? What could be the repercussions of such acts? The reason why is simple. It's because the Republicans, in their current incarnation, are not people of honor. They are faithless, honorless beings who are never going to play fair. It'd be one thing if you had two political ideologies, two political parties that were both composed largely of people of honor. That is not true. The Republicans pack the court because they want flagrantly against their own stated principles in half a dozen cases, flagrantly against their own stated principles. So in 2018, my favorite color is green. In 2020, I hate green. Okay, then. I can't listen to you ever again on any subject, not just your favorite color, any subject. If you're on camera blatantly lying, then you have no honor, you have no word, so you're worthless, you're poisonous in the body politic. But it's not just that. It's that if you don't rebalance the Supreme Court, then you leave the door open to it. If you stay with 9 justices, you leave the door open to it being 9 arch-conservative justices. And then what happens? Black people lose the right to vote? Among many, many, many other things. No, balance has to be restored, especially since balance was stripped away in blatantly unethical ways. I think it should be the first thing that Joe Biden does. Where were we here, though? Question number 5. Who are some contemporary judges you would like to see on the Supreme Court? Anybody who's not a religious nut job. I'm sure there are advocacy groups in Washington who have lists of qualified candidates who are not religious nut jobs. I pick one of those, or 3 or 4 of those. Question number 6. In regards to the inevitable preemptive pardons from Trump, how do you think that whole thing will pan out? Will he try to pardon himself, get Pence to do it as acting president? What about idiot sycophants who will get pardoned? Yeah, we're going to see pardon-palooza is what the commentariat is already referring to it as. Trump can't legally pardon himself. You cannot be both judge, and jury in your own case. That is against not only American law, but 5,000 years of jurisprudence. He can't pardon himself. And if he tries, I believe the Supreme Court, even as it is currently constituted, will vitiate it, will just wipe it out. And Mike Pence is kind of dumb, but he, I believe, is smart enough to know the legal liability that he leaves himself open to if he pardons Donald Trump. Since it is obviously a quid pro quo deal, and giving a pardon to someone, even a presidential pardon, for a quid pro quo reason is illegal. Pence would be facing that himself with no loyalty, no support from the Republican administration or from Trump. I don't believe that he would do it. There's nothing in it for him. I don't believe that he would do it. So I don't foresee that happening, but pardons for all of the corrupt children, pardon for all of the corrupt attorneys, we will certainly see those. And the thing that encourages me, the one thing that encourages me is that a lot of Trump's opponents in the course of the last 4 years, realizing what we came so close to. We came so close to a fascist takeover of this country. Having realized that, a lot of his opponents have taken the gloves off and will come up with creative ways on the state level to go after all of these people. And of course, the presidential pardon doesn't extend to state level crimes. So if I were any of the Nazis in Trump's immediate orbit, I would not be sleeping peacefully. And then it goes on, right? Yes, you go on. Of course you do. Number 7, are you pleased with Biden's cabinet picks so far? If there are some you are not fond of, who and why? I am pleased. No one should be talking about Biden's cabinet picks, in my opinion. No one should be talking about Biden's cabinet picks. Betsy DeVos, Stephen Mnuchin, Steve Bannon, no one should be talking about Biden's cabinet picks. Okay? The minute we start to do that, the minute we start to say, well, yeah, Trump's picks were bad, but this is no bed of roses either, we came an inch away from a Nazi takeover of this country, and the danger is not gone. Biden's picks are normal people. I have no quibbles with any of them, no should anyone else. When the mainstream media and the press and the talking heads on cable news start to pick apart his cabinets in an excess of both sidesism, all they are doing is strengthening the forces of Nazism in this country. And those forces are already plenty strong. So I have no objections whatsoever. Question number 8. Who should Biden appoint as Attorney General? Barack Obama. What should their role be in prosecuting Trump? Where laws were broken, go after the violators. Wherever. Where laws were broken, go after the violators. Question number 9. Do you think the Democrats will win the runoffs? I doubt it. I doubt it. I'll be grateful if they do, but I doubt it. Question number 10. What should be their legislative agenda if they do not? It will break one of two ways. Either the Republicans, the Nazis in the Senate, who have backed Donald Trump's takeover of the government completely, supinely, for 4 years, will suddenly wake up and say, well, okay, but this is Joe Biden. I mean, we've all known him forever. He's a nice guy. He's appointing nice people. They want compromise, good old-fashioned political compromise, where no one is completely satisfied. They want us, in other words, to go back to normal governing. So maybe we do that. Maybe we go back to normal governing. They have a stimulus package. They want this much. We want this much. We'll meet in the middle. Because it's Joe Biden. Because it's not a black man. Then we're willing to do that. That's one way that people say this could break. The other way that it could break is that Mitch McConnell, who is in complete control of the U.S. government, says no. And you say no to what? And you say, no, you don't get it. My answer is no. To everything. No. No. I will not do it. I will not allow any of my members to do it. I will not do it. My caucus will not do it. The answer is no. To everything. I don't care who's hurt. My answer is no. All I want to do, all I get off on doing, is refusing to let government work. That's all he's cared about for the last 16 years. Why would he stop now? It'll break one of those two ways. If it breaks the first way, well, great. Then we'll start to get a working government again and maybe get some things done. That would be fantastic. I don't think it will. Typically speaking, in history, the only way that you diminish the power of Nazis in elected government is to get rid of them. Maybe imprison them, maybe put them on trial, maybe hang them, but definitely get them out of government. There's no such thing as compromising or working with a party-going, believing Nazi. But if it happens, I would be the first to cheer. The second way, which I think is far more likely, that Mitch McConnell just says, no, I don't care who you are. No. My answer is no. The answer of all of my members are no. If I find a Senate Republican compromising with anybody on anything, I'll haul them into my office and give them a ripping. If that happens, then Joe Biden will be reduced to doing what Donald Trump had to do a lot of, which is to govern by executive order, which is damaging in its own right. He's not an emperor. But we shall see. We shall see. If he can govern by, in terms of agenda, if he has to govern by edict, then the first part of the agenda should be to nullify all of Donald Trump's edicts. We need to get back into the international community, for instance, instead of having been withdrawn from it completely because Alex Jones doesn't like Jews. We need to get back into the international community as fast as possible. And question number 11, what do you think the Manchurian man-child will be doing from January 20th until the 2024 race? It's possible that he will lose his mind between now and then. He's already lost a great number of steps. People who have known him for decades will say that Donald Trump that postures today or that gives interviews today is not any... Hi, baby. How you doing? Hmm? You want to go walkies? Is that it? You're just going to stand there? Talk about distracting. How am I supposed to answer political questions with you and him? My baby. Why don't you take a seat? I'll be right back. All right, well, we'll just leave her in the frame for now. The question, what will he be doing between now and then? If he starts to lose his mind in a more dramatic fashion, anyone who's known him for decades will tell you that he is not the same Donald Trump that he was even in the early 2000s. If that continues to happen, well, then plans of a run in 2024 will shift gently to Don Jr. If he dies, same thing. Aside from that, the sky's the limit. There's a tiny part of me that thinks he could flee the country. He will certainly be that if he stays in the country, even if he leaves, that whole time he will be saying that he is still president of the United States, which is incalculably damaging. All right, but I let this one go long because of politics, so we're going to stop here and we'll come back. I'll be right back.